4.5 billion years ago, Earth formed out of the solar dust cloud, then survived a devastating impact with another planet. The investigation now moves 200 million years forward in time as scientists try to discover how the first continents and oceans formed. They are looking for evidence on the northeast shores of Hudson Bay, Canada. This is the desolate landscape of Porpoise Cove, the site of an important new scientific discovery. And it's all down to a young PhD student's fascination with ancient rocks.
I was interested in studying the early Earth, so the idea is to get as far as we can back in time to get these old rocks and study rocks that were there in the past.
Geologists already knew that rocks in this part of northern Canada are extremely old. But something about a small area in this vast wilderness caught O'Neill's eye.
The overall aspect of the rocks really looked different. And right away we knew that something was really bizarre, really unusual about these rocks.
The rocks are highly altered, deformed volcanic lavas known as amphibolites.
The chemistry was unusual, the mineralogy was unusual, and nobody had seen rocks like that before.
O'Neill decided the rocks needed further investigation. He sent samples to be radiometrically dated. The results were astounding.
We were in the lab in Washington, D.C. when we first got the first number out of the machine. And the first reaction is we didn't believe it. So what you do is you reanalyze the rock a second time. And then the same number comes up, and then a third time, and then again and again. So you say, okay, we'll analyze more of these rocks because I can't believe it. And these numbers, the signature, this really, really old signature, keep coming up, keep coming up, and keep coming up. And in the end, you have to come to the conclusion that these rocks have been formed nearly 4.3 billion years ago.
The results were indisputable. The amphibolites are 4.28 billion years old, 200 million years older than any other rocks so far discovered. They are the closest anyone has come to finding Earth's original crust.
These are the oldest rocks in the world, and it's amazing when you stand on it. You can try to imagine yourself almost 4.3 billion years ago when the Earth was so young and just barely forming. Walking on this landscape. And it's a really amazing feeling.
These rocks are now yielding clues about the thickness of the early crust. O'Neill has found unusual minerals which can only form in conditions of very high temperature and pressure. They prove that the amphibolites were made at least 12 miles down in the crust of the Earth. This means that more than 4 billion years ago, Earth had a solid crust at least 12 miles thick. And a crust that thick suggests there must have been continents. And there's more. Evidence hidden in the amphibolites reveals that these rocks must have originally formed deep underwater.
Well, you have to understand that when rocks form, they can record their chemical signature. And depending on where the rocks are formed, in what geological context they will be formed, they will carry that specific chemical signature.
The chemical signature of the amphibolites is unique. It proves that when these rocks formed, Earth had not only a solid crust, but oceans.
The signature we see here, it really looks like an oceanic floor. That means there was an ocean and a lot of water already at 4.28 billion years old. So it totally changes our view of what the Earth was like before.
To the scientific world, this idea is dynamite. But O'Neill is not on his own. There is more evidence to back up his claim.
People often think of this earlier like a ball of fire, a molten rock. But this is not the picture that we see here. We see that already at 4.28 billion years old, we probably had an ocean. We had continent that really, really looks like what we know today. So it changes totally our view of the early Earth.
The investigation has now revealed when the Earth's continents and oceans began to form. Evidence from amphibolite rocks at Porpoise Cove confirms that the Earth had developed a thick, solid crust 4.28 billion years ago. Banded iron formations in the same rocks show that there were oceans on Earth's surface at the same time. All of which raises another mystery. If oceans existed more than 4 billion years ago, the investigation needs to figure out where all the water came from. After its formation from the solar dust cloud 4.5 billion years ago, Earth was a fiery ball of molten rock. But 200 million years later, the first oceans were already forming. And Earth today is the blue planet, with 70% of its surface covered by water. The investigation now looks at the mystery of the origin of Earth's water.
One of the important questions I've always thought about is, where did all of this come from? All of this water, all the water in the oceans and in the atmosphere, in our bodies, in the ground. When you look at the Earth from space, what really impresses you is the water, how beautiful this planet is. Why does Earth have all this water? And how did it get here?
The question has puzzled geologists for years. Now, they believe the answer lies in space. New evidence showing how our water arrived on Earth has emerged from a meteorite that fell in 1998, but which has only recently been analyzed.
We found an astonishing thing. This meteorite contains grains of table salt, just like you put in on your fish and chips.
The clue is trapped inside the crystals of salt and revealed under the microscope. Minute droplets of liquid water.
On the computer screen, you can see a little fluid inclusion, a little drop of water, and you'll know it's water. We know it's liquid because you see a little bubble moving around inside of this little droplet of water.
The amazing thing about this discovery is the age of the water.
You can date this by several different dating techniques. The salt itself is 4.5 billion years old. The water inside has to be at least that old, if not even older. There's no question about it. And so this water is at least as old as the solar system.
Here is visible evidence that water existed in space when the Earth first formed. And Zelensky is convinced that meteorites then brought the water to Earth.
And so it's looking more and more like the water arrived drop by drop in rocks like this meteorite here, landing over the course of billions of years. You have lots of material coming in every day and smacking into the Earth and depositing a little bit of water, a few drops at a time.
The scale of the meteorite bombardment needed to fill the oceans with water is almost impossible to comprehend. But scientists believe that over billions of years, there were easily enough meteorites crashing into the Earth to account for all the water on the planet.
Gradually, those rocks are sweating water, building up first shallow seas here and there that grow to be giant oceans. We go from this to this.
And we sent down water from the sky in proper quantity, and settled it in the ground, and we are able to take it away,